The summer heat in Rio de Janeiro was particularly oppressive that evening. Lucas Mendez wiped sweat from his brow as he expertly balanced 3 plates of maquica along his forearm. 6 months into his job at Restaurante Vista Mar, perched on the cliffs of Vidigal with a breathtaking view of Ipanema Beach, he had mastered the art of swift service despite the restaurant's perpetual busyness. Table 12 is still waiting for their drink order. Marina, the head waitress, reminded him as they passed each other in the narrow corridor leading to the kitchen. I know, Lucas replied, delivering the steaming plates to an American family before hurrying to table 12. The man sitting alone at table 12 seemed out of place amid the vibrant, chattering crowd. He wore a simple white linen shirt and beige pants, quality clothing, but nothing that screamed wealth like most of the restaurant's clientele. His salt and pepper hair was slightly disheveled, and he stared out at the ocean, seemingly lost in thought. Good evening, sir. Sorry for the wait. Are you ready to order your drink? Lucas asked in English, noticing the man's distinctly non-Brazilian features. The man turned, his gray eyes momentarily unfocused. Just water, please. Still water. Lucas nodded, slightly surprised by the simplicity of the order. Most tourists indulged in caipirinhas or exotic fruit cocktails. And are you ready to order food? Or would you like a few more minutes? I'll have whatever you recommend, the man said, offering a tired smile. Something authentic. Lucas brightened. Our maquica is excellent. It's a traditional fish stew with coconut milk, palm oil, and local spices. Or if you prefer meat, our feijoada is the best in the city. The fish stew sounds perfect. The man handed back the menu without even glancing at the prices, something Lucas always noticed about wealthy customers. As the evening progressed, Lucas kept an eye on table 12. The man ate slowly, methodically, taking small sips of water between bites. He didn't look around the restaurant or take photos of the view like other tourists. He simply ate, occasionally making notes in a small leather-bound notebook. It was during the dessert service that Lucas noticed something was wrong. The man's hand trembled as he reached for his water glass, and his face had grown alarmingly pale. Lucas approached immediately. Sir, are you feeling all right? The man tried to respond but only managed a weak shake of his head before his eyes rolled back. Lucas lunged forward, catching him just before he would have hit the tiled floor. Marina, call an ambulance, Lucas shouted, carefully lowering the man to the ground and loosening his collar. The restaurant erupted in concerned murmurs as other diners stood to see what was happening. Lucas remembered his first aid training from his previous job at a hotel. He checked the man's pulse, rapid but present, and placed him in the recovery position. The man's breathing was shallow, his skin clammy. The ambulance is coming, Marina said, kneeling beside them. Is he diabetic, do you think? I don't know. Lucas searched the man's pockets, looking for medical identification, but found only a sleek wallet and a smartphone. The man's eyelids fluttered. No, ambulance, he whispered hoarsely. Sir, you just fainted. You need medical attention, Lucas insisted. No hospitals. The man clutched Lucas's wrist with surprising strength. Just need sugar. Hypoglycemia. Marina ran to fetch orange juice while Lucas helped the man sit up, supporting his back. Do you have medication with you? Lucas asked. The man shook his head. Just need to eat something. I forgot to eat today. Been busy. Lucas had dealt with plenty of difficult customers, but never one who refused medical help after collapsing. When Marina returned with the juice, he helped the man drink slowly. As color returned to the man's face, he seemed embarrassed by the attention. I'm fine now. Please, help me to my table. Against his better judgment, Lucas and Marina helped him back to his seat. The restaurant manager had arrived, profusely apologizing as if the establishment were somehow responsible for the man's condition. It's not your fault, the man said firmly. Your staff, especially this young man, was excellent. I just neglected my own health today. After ensuring the man consumed some dessert and more juice, Lucas returned to his other tables, though he kept glancing back at table 12. The incident had disrupted the usual rhythm of the evening, but the restaurant gradually returned to normal. When the man prepared to leave, Lucas brought his bill. "I've called a taxi for you, sir. I really think you should see a doctor." The man smiled, a genuine smile this time. "You're very kind, Lucas." He glanced at Lucas's name tag. Not many people would care so much about a stranger. He handed Lucas a credit card, and as Lucas processed the payment, his eyes widened at the name embossed on the black metal card. Alexander Reed. Alexander Reed of Reed Global Holdings. The man who owned hotel chains on 6 continents. The man Forbes had recently declared the world's newest trillionaire. Lucas returned with the receipt, suddenly conscious of his worn uniform and the sweat stains under his arms. Reed signed it without looking at the amount, then added something at the bottom before handing it back. "Thank you for your care tonight. Sometimes we all need someone to catch us when we fall." After Reed left, Lucas looked at the receipt. Below the signature was a phone number and a note. "Call this number tomorrow. I have a proposition for you." Lucas stared after the taxi as it disappeared into the night, the receipt clutched tightly in his hand. The morning sun filtered through the threadbare curtains of Lucas's small apartment in Botafogo. He hadn't slept well, replaying the previous night's events in his mind. The business card Alexander Reed had given him lay on his nightstand, its embossed golden letters catching the light. Lucas picked up his phone for the 20th time that morning, staring at the number he'd already entered. What could a trillionaire possibly want with a waiter from Rio? Was this some kind of elaborate joke? His phone rang suddenly, startling him so badly he nearly dropped it. It wasn't Reed's number, but Marina's. "Lucas, have you seen the news?" Her voice buzzed with excitement. "What news?" "You're a fainting man. It's all over the business channels. Alexander Reed is in Rio to negotiate the purchase of the Goldstein hotel chain. It's a multi-billion-dollar deal." Lucas sat down heavily on his bed. "I was going to call him today. He left his number." There was a pause. "Are you serious?" "Lucas, do you realize what this could mean?" Reed is known for spotting talent in unexpected places. His personal assistant used to be a taxi driver who once gave him a ride in Mumbai. After finishing the call with Marina, Lucas gathered his courage and dialed Reed's number. To his surprise, Reed himself answered on the second ring. "Mr. Mendez, I was hoping you'd call." His voice was stronger than the previous night, authoritative yet warm. "Mr. Reed, thank you for the tip last night." Lucas winced at his own awkwardness. Reed chuckled. "The tip was for your excellent service. My proposition is something else entirely. Are you free for lunch today? My hotel, the Copacabana Palace, at noon." Lucas glanced at his waiter's uniform hanging on the door. He was supposed to work the lunch shift. "I can be there." After hanging up, Lucas called his manager, fabricating a family emergency. Then he pulled out his only suit, navy blue, slightly too large, purchased for his sister's wedding 3 years ago, and laid it on the bed. The Copacabana Palace stood like a gleaming white fortress along the famous beach. Lucas had passed it countless times but had never ventured inside. As he approached the entrance, his second-hand leather shoes pinching his toes, 2 doormen in crisp uniforms nodded respectfully. "Mr. Mendez?" One stepped forward. "Mr. Reed is expecting you. Please follow me." Instead of the hotel restaurant, Lucas was led to a private penthouse suite. The elevator ride was silent and swift, giving him little time to calm his racing heart. The doors opened directly into a spacious living area, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing a spectacular view of Copacabana Beach. Alexander Reed stood by the window, his back to the door. He turned as Lucas entered, appearing much more vital than the previous night. He wore a simple blue shirt and tailored trousers, his silver hair neatly combed. "Lucas, thank you for coming." Reed extended his hand. "I hope you don't mind that I arranged for a private lunch. I prefer to avoid publicity when I'm working on delicate negotiations." A table was set for 2 on the balcony, the ocean breeze gently billowing the white tablecloth. A waiter, far more polished than Lucas had ever been, stood discreetly nearby. As they sat down, Reed wasted no time. I'll be direct, Lucas. I was impressed by your actions last night. Not just your quick response when I fainted, but your attention throughout the evening. You noticed I was unwell before anyone else, including myself. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. No, Reed said firmly. They wouldn't. I've built my empire by recognizing something in people that others miss. You have it. Have what, exactly? Lucas asked. Perception, genuine care, competence under pressure. Reed took a sip of water. I'm in Rio to finalize the acquisition of the Goldstein properties in South America. 37 hotels that need to be integrated into the Reed system. Lucas nodded, uncertain where this was leading. I need someone who understands local culture, someone who can see problems before they arise. Reed leaned forward. I'm offering you a position as Regional Operations Coordinator for the Reed Goldstein integration team. Lucas nearly choked on his water. Mr. Reed, I'm a waiter. I don't have a business degree or corporate experience. What you have is more valuable. You have instinct. Reed smiled. And you saved me from a very public and potentially dangerous situation last night. My hypoglycemia isn't usually so severe, but the stress of these negotiations. He shrugged. Had you called an ambulance against my wishes, tomorrow's headlines would have been about my health instead of my business dealings. Stock prices would have fluctuated. Deals could have fallen through. The waiter served a sophisticated version of feijoada, traditional Brazilian black bean and pork stew, reimagined as haute cuisine. Reed continued speaking as they ate. The position pays $120,000 annually to start, with performance bonuses. You'll travel throughout South America, working directly with my senior integration team. We'll provide training, of course. Lucas set down his fork. Why me? There must be thousands of qualified people who would fight for this opportunity. Reed's expression grew serious. When you have as much money as I do, Lucas, you learn that credentials and qualifications are easy to acquire. Character is not. Yesterday, I was just another customer to you. Not particularly friendly or engaging. Yet you treated me with dignity and genuine concern. He paused, cutting a piece of meat. Do you know how many people walk past me without recognition when I dress like this? I cultivate anonymity to observe how hotels and restaurants truly operate. The way staff behave when they don't know who's watching tells me everything about an establishment's culture. Lucas's mind raced. This opportunity was beyond anything he'd ever imagined. But doubt crept in. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? Reed set down his utensils and looked directly at Lucas. Everyone fails. I've failed spectacularly many times. But I don't think you will. He pulled a folder from beside his chair and slid it across the table. Here's the formal offer. Take it home. Read it carefully. You have until tomorrow to decide. As lunch concluded, Reed walked Lucas to the elevator. One more thing, Lucas. I'm curious. You recognized who I was last night, didn't you? After you saw my credit card. Lucas nodded. Yes, sir. Yet you didn't treat me any differently. That's rare. Reed extended his hand again. I hope you'll say yes. I think we could accomplish great things together. The elevator doors closed, and Lucas descended to the lobby, the folder clutched tightly under his arm, his future suddenly uncertain in the most extraordinary way. Lucas's tiny apartment seemed even smaller that evening as he paced from wall to wall, the contract spread open on his kitchen table. The folder Reed had given him contained not only the job offer but a comprehensive overview of the Reed Global Holdings integration process, an organizational chart, and a confidential brief on the Goldstein acquisition. His phone had been buzzing all afternoon. His mother wanting to know why he'd missed his shift, Marina curious about his meeting with Reed, his sister Juliana checking if he was coming to Sunday lunch as promised. Lucas hadn't told anyone about the job offer. The salary alone was more money than he'd ever imagined earning. 10 times his current wages. The benefits package included housing allowances, health insurance that would cover his aging parents, and stock options that could set him up for life. It seemed too good to be true. People like him, from his humble background in the working-class neighborhood of Mare, didn't get opportunities like this. His father had spent 40 years as a bus driver. His mother cleaned hotels not unlike the ones Reed owned. Lucas had been fortunate to afford 2 years of university before family financial pressures forced him to drop out and work full-time. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Juliana, holding a container of their mother's cooking. "Mommy thought you might be sick," she said, pushing past him into the apartment. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" Lucas took the container. "I've been thinking." Juliana narrowed her eyes, always quick to sense when something was happening with her younger brother. She spotted the papers on the table. "What's all this?" There was no hiding it now. Lucas explained everything: the encounter with Reed, the fainting episode, the lunch meeting, and the job offer. As he spoke, Juliana's expression shifted from skepticism to shock to excitement. "Meu Deus, Lucas, this is incredible." She grabbed the contract, scanning the numbers. "This salary. This is more than Dr. Ferreira makes at the hospital. And he's been a surgeon for 20 years. Lucas took the contract back. "It's not that simple, Ju. I'm not qualified for this job. I'd be working with people who have MBAs from American universities, people who speak multiple languages." "You speak English and Spanish," Juliana interrupted. "High school Spanish and self-taught English from watching American shows with subtitles," Lucas countered. "These people will see right through me. I'll embarrass Mr. Reed and myself." Juliana's face softened. She took Lucas's hands in hers. "When Papai got sick 3 years ago, who figured out the insurance paperwork? When Mommy's employer tried to cheat her out of overtime, who went down there and negotiated with the manager? When I couldn't afford Mateus's school supplies, who always found a way?" Lucas looked away. "That's different." "No, it's not. You've always been the one who solves problems, who sees solutions others miss." Juliana squeezed his hands. "This Reed man sees it too. Who are you to tell a trillionaire he's wrong about business?" After Juliana left, Lucas sat on his balcony, watching the lights of the city. His phone rang again, an unknown number. "Mr. Mendez, this is Elena Suarez, Mr. Reed's chief of staff," a crisp female voice announced. "Mr. Reed wanted me to check if you had any questions about the offer." Lucas hesitated. "Actually, yes. What happens if I accept and then fail? I have no experience in corporate hospitality management." There was a pause. "Mr. Reed mentioned you might be concerned about that. Perhaps I can offer some perspective. I joined Reed Global 10 years ago as a housekeeper in Madrid. Now I oversee Mr. Reed's global schedule and strategic initiatives." Lucas was surprised. "How did that happen?" "Mr. Reed promotes based on performance, not pedigree. The integration team you'd be joining includes a former bellhop from Chicago, a room service manager from Tokyo, and an events coordinator from Cape Town. None had corporate experience before Reed." After the call, Lucas walked to the window, looking out at the favela on the distant hillside where he'd grown up, and then to the glittering hotels along the beach. Two worlds that never intersected, except now, somehow, through him. He thought about his parents, how his father's knees had given out after decades of driving, how his mother's hands were permanently roughened from cleaning chemicals. He thought about Juliana, raising his nephew Mateus alone after her husband abandoned them, working double shifts at the pharmacy. The position with Reed would change everything, not just for him but for all of them. Lucas picked up his phone and dialed Reed's number. "Mr. Reed, it's Lucas Mendez. I've made my decision." 2 days later, Lucas stood in the lobby of the Goldstein Rio, the flagship property of the chain Reed was acquiring. He wore a new suit, tailored overnight at Reed's insistence. His hair was freshly cut, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. In his hand was a tablet containing the integration checklist he would be working through. Elena Suarez stood beside him, elegant in a navy blue dress. "The general manager doesn't know you're coming. Mr. Reed wants your unfiltered observations." Lucas nodded, nervous energy coursing through him. "What exactly am I looking for?" "Everything you would notice as a guest or staff member. The things most executives miss because they're looking at spreadsheets instead of people." Elena smiled encouragingly. "You have good instincts, Lucas. Trust them." As they walked through the hotel, Lucas found himself noticing details he'd never consciously registered before. How the front desk staff tensed slightly when guests approached, how the bellhops communicated with subtle nods and glances, how the housekeeping cart was organized efficiently but showed signs of hasty repairs. In the restaurant, a waiter dropped a tray of glasses. The manager appeared immediately, berating him in front of guests. Lucas watched as the other staff averted their eyes, their body language revealing a workplace culture of fear. Later, in the confidential meeting with Reed's senior team, Lucas hesitated before sharing his observations. These people had decades of corporate experience among them. Who was he to speak? "Lucas," Reed said, noticing his silence. "You have the floor." Taking a deep breath, Lucas began to speak. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence, he outlined what he'd seen. The staff's underlying tension, the management's public disciplinary style, the signs of cost-cutting that affected guest experience. When he finished, there was silence. Then Reed smiled. "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why Lucas is joining our team. He sees what matters most, the human element that makes or breaks a hotel." Reed turned to Lucas. "Your instincts were right. This property needs a complete culture overhaul before we rebrand it." That night, in his new company apartment with its view of Sugarloaf Mountain, Lucas called his parents. "Mommy, Papai, I have some news. I've accepted a new job." As he explained the position, downplaying the salary and responsibilities to avoid overwhelming them, Lucas felt something shift inside him. The doubt was still there, but alongside it was something new, a cautious belief that perhaps Alexander Reed had been right about him all along. 6 months later, Lucas stood in the ballroom of the newly rebranded Reed Rio Goldstein, watching as Alexander Reed cut the ceremonial ribbon. The hotel staff, many of them new hires, others retrained under the Reed methodology, applauded politely. Unlike the tense atmosphere Lucas had first observed, there was now a genuine warmth in their interactions. "Quite a change from when you first walked through these doors," Elena remarked, appearing beside him in an elegant evening gown. "Congratulations, Lucas. The integration team reports this has been the smoothest transition in the company's history." Lucas smiled modestly. It's been a group effort. The past months had been the most challenging of his life. The initial excitement of his new position had quickly given way to an avalanche of responsibilities. Learning corporate protocols, mastering financial reports, navigating the politics of a global organization. There had been nights when Lucas had called Juliana in tears, convinced he was in over his head, that Reed had made a terrible mistake. But there had also been breakthroughs. Lucas discovered that his years of service work had given him insights no business school could teach. He understood the subtle dynamics between housekeeping and front desk, how the rhythm of a kitchen affected guest satisfaction, how the maintenance team's morale directly impacted the guest experience. His first major test had come 3 months in, when he'd identified a critical flaw in the integration plan for the Buenos Aires properties. Against the advice of more experienced team members, Lucas had insisted on restructuring the housekeeping department before the formal rebranding. "The rooms are the heart of a hotel," he'd argued in the contentious meeting. "If housekeeping isn't functioning perfectly from day one of the rebrand, guest reviews will tank, and we'll be fighting an uphill battle for months." Reed had sided with Lucas, and the results had vindicated his approach. The Buenos Aires properties had opened under the Reed flag to rave reviews, with special mention of the immaculate rooms and attentive housekeeping. Now, as the ribbon-cutting ceremony concluded, Reed made his way through the crowd toward Lucas. "Walk with me," Reed said, gesturing toward the terrace. Outside, with the lights of Rio sparkling below them, Reed leaned against the railing. "I've been watching your progress, Lucas. You've exceeded my expectations, which doesn't happen often." "Thank you, sir. I've been trying to learn as quickly as possible." Reed nodded thoughtfully. "The learning curve in this business is steep, but you've climbed it like someone born to the task." He turned to face Lucas directly. "Which is why I'm appointing you Director of Operations for all South American properties, effective immediately." Lucas stared at him in disbelief. That's Garcia's position. He has 20 years of experience, and he's being promoted to our European division." His recommendation for you was quite compelling. Reed smiled. He said you reminded him of himself at your age, except you don't have his blind spots. Inside, the party continued. Lucas could see his family through the glass doors. His parents unable to hide their pride, Juliana with Mateus, all of them dressed in new clothes that Lucas had insisted on buying for the occasion. There's one more thing, Reed continued. I've decided to establish a scholarship fund for hospitality workers seeking further education. I'd like to name it after you. Lucas blinked rapidly, fighting back unexpected emotion. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll help select the recipients. Reed looked out at the city. I want people who have what you have, Lucas. People who understand that true hospitality isn't taught in classrooms but learned through service. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Lucas found himself alone with his father on the terrace. The older Mendez, still uncomfortable in his new suit, looked out at the city where he'd driven a bus for 4 decades. I still don't understand it, Filio, he said softly. How this happened to you. Lucas followed his father's gaze to the favela visible in the distance, their former home. Sometimes I don't either, Pi. I keep waiting to wake up. His father placed a weathered hand on Lucas's shoulder. Your mother thinks it was destiny. Me, I think it was something else. He turned to look at his son. All those years watching you grow up, you were always the one who noticed things. When the neighbor's child was hungry, when my back was hurting even though I never complained, when your sister needed help but was too proud to ask. Lucas had never heard his taciturn father speak so directly. This rich man, Reed, he saw what we always saw. You have good eyes and a good heart. The older man squeezed his son's shoulder. In the end, that's worth more than money. Inside, Alexander Reed watched the father and son from across the room. Elena approached, following his gaze. He's going to reshape our entire South American operation, isn't he? She asked. Reed nodded. And more. Lucas represents everything I've been trying to build. A company that values perception and compassion as much as profit. The board still questions your hiring practices, Elena reminded him. They want more MBAs, fewer diamond-in-the-rough stories. Reed smiled. Tell them to compare the performance metrics of our conventional hires against my special projects. The numbers speak for themselves. As if sensing their attention, Lucas turned and met Reed's gaze across the room. The young man nodded respectfully, and Reed returned the gesture with a slight raise of his champagne glass. 6 months ago, a waiter had caught him as he fell. Today, that same waiter was helping hold up an empire. Alexander Reed had built his fortune by recognizing value where others saw nothing special. In Lucas Mendez, the quiet, observant waiter from a Rio favela, he had made perhaps his wisest investment yet. As the lights of Rio glittered below them, Reed knew that both their lives had been transformed by that chance encounter. It was, he reflected, the most valuable fainting spell of his life.